thank you. It's lovely actually to see so many here. Last month I think we were a little lean on the ground. It's really nice. And it's Chris's first presentation for Fit for More, so good luck. I'm sure you do. Amazing.
There's an open window there. So
There is an open window. If you just dive
if I get
out.
under too much pressure, I'm going.
You should all have handouts. There is space on there to write some notes, so please write some notes. We're going to do some demonstrations as well, which you're welcome to take part in, but if you don't want to take part, that's absolutely fine. We're not going to do anything really complicated or uncomfortable, and would never want to put you in a position where you didn't feel comfortable, so please don't feel you have to. But it is quite interesting, some of the tests, etc. So Chris is going to talk to you about the functional movement system, all about how your body moves and some tests that we can do to make sure that you move optimally so that it prevents injuries and pains and aches and things like that. But I'm not going to say any more because I'll end up taking over the whole thing. So, I think most of you have met Chris. I'll hand over to Chris.
So yeah, I'll just do a brief introduction for those who don't know me or much of my background. So yeah, I'm taking over as the new trainer in case of Sam. My background is I'm a graduate at Portsmouth University, so I graduated in 2013. I did sport and exercise science. And my two major areas were something called biomechanics and physiology. So biomechanics is just a fancy word for saying how the body moves. So that's what I majored in, did my dissertation in as well. More personally for me, I'm very much a sporting and fitness, well I would say a fitness geek. I'm very interested in all the readings, all the current literature around it. And yeah, when I was younger, pretty much any sport you can think of, I had a go at it. So I'm very active still in cricket, rugby and football. So I very much like my team sports and social actions around that. So in terms of my fitness career, I obviously graduated in 2013. I've been in personal training for 3.5 years now. And obviously with Lisa, this is my newest foray into it. But yeah, really enjoying it so far. So in terms of my own training, I came across FMS first of all at university, but not in huge context, not delving too deep into it. Sort of part of my key reading into specific areas. It wasn't until my second year out of university when I really got involved into this. And personally, I'm always been a very, very, unflexible individual. I mean, if you told me to kind of touch my toes, at one point I couldn't even go past my shins. So I've worked on this specifically for myself to begin with, because I thought I need to get better at my mobility, because otherwise I'm going to get a lower back injury or I'm not going to be moving as well as I want to when I'm older. So I went to a guy called Nick Heisman who works in Kroger. I did a 3-month sort of course with him, learned all the practical situations. But this is also a system where it works online. So you can get qualified online with certifications and going into one-on-one assessments. So through that, really the first question I've got for all of you is, have you heard of functional training before?
No.
Cool, so functional so that's a good start first of all. So functional training's really become sort of a buzzword, quite close to the industry right about now. So a lot of people use it in terms of I train in a way that I can then take it outside in sort of my work and daily patterns. So this is a variation of that. And FMS is something which is the brainchild of a very, very clever man called Gray Cook. He is a world-renowned practitioner for movement training and also general personal training. So he's based in the USA. And his system, this is used around the world by all the professional sports teams, so whether it be basketball, your Manchester United football, it's very much a current issue which people really think it helps their performance of their players or themselves. The great thing about this FMS study, so functional movement systems and training, is that you can take it from, you've got your elite people who play it professionally, but then it's really malleable and you can apply it to just, for example, an 80-year-old lady who just wants to either reach up to pick up a cup from a shelf or doesn't want to feel any back pain when bending down to pick up their bags. So it is really interchangeable between all sorts of demographics. So, really, FMS is a series of movements which are carried out, and it evaluates two key aspects. First of all, is your mobility, so how far can your joints actually move, and then also your stability, so how controlled are you when also moving. So I know for a lot of us when we've done classes, for example, we say, can you go into a lunge? Sometimes when we lunge down, you get a little bit of a shake and you come unbalanced. That is training what's called dynamic stability, so your ability really to control yourself while moving. So that's the two key areas that this test focuses on. And the 7 movements are actually movements that Gray Cook believes should be able to be done by everyone, regardless of age, gender, size or shape. But it should be pain-free, and you should be able to freely move within them. So I know everyone here has probably come across a moment in their life, and it's certainly me, where you might have picked something up, you might be tying a shoelace and suddenly you felt your back pull, or you had a shoulder twinge. This is one of the key things that it looks at. So it's almost an early injury prevention system. So I know for myself, because I'm a cricketer and I'm a fast bowler, the main injury for a fast bowler is the lower back. So when we bowl, we put a lot of forces through that. So I'm really conscious of what's my back feeling like and how can I prevent it from stiffening up all the time. So for other people, it really comes into what are their weaknesses. So for example, if you know you've got one leg stronger than the other, that's one thing this test picks up on quite quickly, is imbalances in the body and how you get around that by using different parts of the body. So for example, if you had a weak hip and you feel like you're sagging always to one side, genuinely your other side has to pick up the slack. So I know for myself, I'm very strong in the front of my legs, but because of that, my pelvis tilts, which means that my lower back normally becomes under pressure and also gets quite tight as well. So it's really the study of how your body moves and how we can go about training out of these functions and into better movement. So as I said, it really is an injury prevention system. Lets you know strengths of your body, but also how to improve on the weaknesses, which is the main function. Throughout all the movements as well, they're intentionally designed to put you in a more problematic position than you would have in everyday life. So if I go back to that lunge, one of these tests is called the inline lunge. So normally when I say to one of you, if you feel like you're moving, you feel a little bit unbalanced, I normally say to you, spread your feet, increase your surface area. That will give you better balance through your core. The inline lunge purposely takes your legs one behind the other. So straight away, I've got less of a actual platform for me to move. So I have to really focus on keeping my core nice and strong so I don't overbalance. The great thing about this is if you can perform the movement to a good degree with both legs in behind, that translates even better to when you take it to an easier position. So once again with functional movement, we're looking at two things: mobility, so range of movement at a joint, and also stability. Can I control myself through that range of motion? So where people get confused between flexibility and mobility, you normally have a lot of people saying, I want to improve on my flexibility. So flexibility is just actually a word for saying how long is a muscle. It's really what we want to look at is the mobility, because that carries over more into functional life. Can I, for example, put my leg up onto a chair when I'm moving, rather than can I feel a deep stretch in the muscle? So that's one thing I like to clear up with people quite quickly, just the difference between flexibility and mobility as a general. So yeah, so really with the FMS we're looking at a balance. So for all the joints in the body, you either want them to have a good range of mobility, for example shoulders, you want to have good movement up, down and circling around. Then for example in my lower back, I want to have a high level of stability. So for example, I'm picking up my bags to go for a walk, I want to be able to have good control translating up through my spine, so there's not too much movement on the way down. So for an example, if my hamstrings, or if any of you before felt like your hamstrings are quite tight, that's normally the first sign of something called the weakness. So if my hamstrings are tight, normally what's going on means that because of this, my lower back has to compensate for this tightness. So where there's normally a weakness in the body, there has to be a compensatory effect. What's great about the FMS is that it picks up on these compensations. But it entirely depends on the actual person who's delivering it. So I'm not tooting my horn, but I've done a lot of clientele with this. Probably done the test of about over 100 people. And the more you do it, the more you look at sort of little differences, little changes in the body. So it's all about the actual practitioner picking up on these little defects or compensations, as it were. So really, if I'm going back to the whole hamstring being tight, what most people do is go, oh, got a tight hamstring. The normal answer we get is, I need to stretch it. That doesn't take away the actual root cause of the problem. It just gives you almost a masking agent. So normally, well, the FMS concentrates on something called core stability. So does everyone know that term? Because quite a lot in our classes, I know me for sure, and I'm sure Lisa does it as well, we say keep your core tight or really brace hard. Yeah. So with the core, the main principle is if you have large core control, so you're very, very adept at that, that means that your limbs, you're able to control them better. And that's the same principle for FMS. If you have more control in the center of your body, then you can allow yourself to increase the range of movement or sit into a certain pattern throughout your limbs.
Can I just ask?
Yeah, of course.
The core, can you just explain a bit about the core and the limb connection? Because I didn't know they had anything to do with each other. I've always just thought it was
A separate thing. Yeah, of course. So a lot of people actually don't know what the core is in general. If I sort of went for a poll, you would get a variety of different answers. The core is simply hips, the trunk, and the head. So everything which isn't basically an appendage.
Yeah, so sort of from here to here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, limbs, legs and arms, and
So
the
it's
core is the rest of
your
it.
torso.
Yeah.
And
Is
people,
that-
sorry,
Yeah, I see. I thought it was actually like just the very middle. Okay.
like there.
Like,
It's not just your tummy muscles either. It's
Yeah,
because
that's
people
correct.
forget as well that the core is also your back.
Mm.
So everything that happens behind you as well as everything that happens in front of you.
okay, in which case I don't know what the core is.
No problem.
That's good, yes, okay.
So yeah, that's what you've displayed there is one of the key first questions that people don't actually know what it is, because it's such a big buzzword. It's just like, oh, where actually is my core? So people, and there's actually deep lying muscles, but there's also a very big relationship between the core, so actually my abdominals, and then my back. So one of the key ones is if your core is really weak, where's the place where the actual counterbalance comes? It's from the back. So once again, if your back feels quite tight, normally the first thing I say to people is have a look in the mirror at your posture. If you're either rounding or arching the lower back, that means your core has become quite weak. So it plays in sort of direct relationship.
That all makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. Good. So I like to pretty much say my first analogy with the mobility stability is it's kind of like shoot. You don't want to shoot a cannon out of a canoe. So does everyone understand that from what I say? So obviously if I was to shoot the cannon, it's in the water, it's going to rock, and the actual ball is not going to go where I want it to. However, if I have a really firm foundation, so it's on ground, concrete, I'm going to be able to display the force exactly where I want to, and there's going to be no transition into areas where I don't want it to go. So if I take that into the human body, it's if I cause really strong here, I can control where my limbs go with great efficiency. If I'm really weak and I'm letting myself slouch, suddenly I'm not going to have that control, and that's where injury can come into it. So me as a cricketer, there's a huge emphasis, especially for athletes, on core control. The stronger we are, the more force we can produce, so you perform better. And that's exactly the same in everyday life. So one of the other things is, with you for example, how many of you garden here? Do gardening? Would you ever think of warming up before gardening?
No.
You might think of it the next day when you're really stiff.
Yes.
Exactly.
Normally what
But it's amazing how many people don't think it's actual exercise, because essentially you're bending down to pick something up. It's exactly the same movement as a deadlift that we do in some of the classes. It's still the same movement, but we don't go, well, hang on, I'm going to twist and I'm going to warm up my muscles. But yeah, you're still moving. So it's kind of into a whole mind and emphasis on it as well.
It's why as well, in, certainly in the 60 plus classes, we sometimes do some weird things where you're sort of twisting or lifting and you sort of think, what's that all about? And I probably maybe don't use the word functional, but that's what I'm trying to duplicate really. So if you're, it's like if you're in the car and you need to go and get your seatbelt, so many people do this and then they crick their neck or they've caught their back here, they get that horrible pain there. It's because your core or stability is not strong. So that's why we try to incorporate those sort of movements in the sessions that we do to help strengthen that core.
Yeah, absolutely. So really the key principle that FMS as a whole is, how would you find that balance between good stability and adequate range of mobility? So the other really nice analogy I like to use is a tree in a storm. So once again, if your body's not strong and the tree doesn't have deep roots, the storm's going to lift it up and it's going to fly away. AKA, that's your injury. If you're actually well grounded in your movements, but your body allows you to then once again move without pain in the correct manner, that chance of injury gets severely reduced. Cool. So once again, only targeting the weakness itself, that's not going to give you that chance to actually eliminate the chance of being injured. You have to look at the reason why. Why am I getting tight? Why am I hurting, for example, my lower back in the first place? So that's my job. So I get the tricky part to actually assess how do you move and why are you doing so in the first place. So a lot of it comes into your posture to begin with. So if you've had an assessment with Lisa when you started up, she'll say to you, come to the side, a couple of deep breaths and just relax. So normally we'll look at you from the front, from the side, just to pick up anything. And the classic one you get is if you're doing a lot of work on a desk, in a chair. You'll get this position here, sort of hunchback leaning over. Then root cause of that, suddenly people go, oh, shoulder hurts a little bit. I find it hard to reach up to catch something. But obviously, without correct training, you're not going to really understand why is this happening. So it's my job being a practitioner in it to go, right, you're bending over, that means your shoulder's getting tight. But if you open yourself back up, suddenly where does the shoulders go? They open up. And that's the great thing about the FMS. If you know for a fact that you've got one real big bugbear, so for example, it's my hips, because mine are extremely tight. It's a family trait, before I put my excuses in. So normally if you eliminate the one big cause, it's like a chain effect or a stack of dominoes. Once you get rid of the main problem, normally the other little niggles tend to go away. So for example, if you have shoulder problem, the main two areas I would look at is, well, what's your back doing? What position is it? But also, what's going on up above? How tight is your shoulder? Can you move around side to side? What's your neck doing? So it's all these different movements play into one big area, as you will. So really, how do we actually go about doing this test? So that's what we're actually here for. So this is the greatest part, I believe, about FMS. As I said to begin with, it's so easy and approachable. It's quantitative, so it works in scoring system. Each of these 7 exercises, they're scored in 0 to 3. So 0 being, I get pain when I do this exercise, it hurts. Normally, if anyone gets into that position, we would look to refer outside. So for example, if I was telling you to do the squat, you go, ooh, ow, my hip really hurts. At that stage, we know there's something probably going on a little bit more than what I can deal with, because I'm no magic doctor, as much as I like to think I am. So yeah, that's when you'd say, okay, go and have a look at a physio and then come back. So that's the other great thing, and this is a self-referring exercise. A 1 is you can just about complete this task, but not to the desired level. A 2 is you're able to complete the task, great, but there's a little bit of compensation. So a classic option would be in a squat, and we'll ask you to keep your torso nice and tall, head looking forward. The classic one you see straight away is someone starting to lean forward. But you can still squat down to an adequate level. That's considered a 2. So for a practitioner like myself, I love to see 2s. Fantastic. You can pretty much complete the movement, there's no pain, but we've got a little bit of a way to go till you perfectly groove the movement. A 3 is fantastic. Complete the task, excellent. You don't have any pain, you've got really good mobility, but also your stability is at a really good level as well. So 3s are what we want to see, 2s equally good, 1s, we can always get better. So when I started this, 3 times 7 out of 21, I think I must have scored 11. So just to put that into context, you want to get 14 is your benchmark. So anything above a 14 is good, you're doing well. I think the highest I've ever got is a lady who works in a yoga gym, and she got 20 out of 21, and she pretty much was running her toes through her hair. So, yeah. So as well as the scoring out of 21, we're also looking for any asymmetry. So is the left-hand side of my body working better than the right-hand side, and vice versa. So that's one other thing that this picks up on really, really well. So for example, if you know that, I'm more stable on my left leg, through corrective exercises and also planning, we can strengthen up your right. So it's always, always, always better to get a 1 than a 3 on 2 sides. So for example, if I got a 1 on my left, obviously that's not great, but I got a 3 on my right, that shows that I've got a big difference. I'd much rather you to get a lower score, so a 1 on 1 on both sides, because at least it shows us that you're balanced. If you're not, if you've got a 1 and a 3 on each side, it shows us that you've got a big compensation with one leg than the other. So what are actually the exercises? So through my experience of teaching this, the first exercise is called the deep squat. So it's one of the fundamental movements, squatting down, picking something up. I'm sure you've all seen pictures as a child. They have fantastic technique, they have flexibility. The normal problem that people find with squatting is that we just don't do it enough. With our culture, we like to do what we're doing now, we're sitting on chairs. For example, in Asian communities, etc., always squatting down, even if it's just conversing or talking. So yeah, that is the main thing we look at. So it challenges total body movement, and the main areas we're looking at are ankles, hips, knees as well, but also upper back mobility. So it targets a lot of areas at once. So this is probably my favourite exercise to do, because this is the one I used to really struggle with. I pretty much folded up like a deck chair when I did this the first time. But you can just get really, really quick results by targeting a few key areas. The biggest area is normally the ankles. So if you've ever had knee pain before, has anyone had knee pain? So yeah, first thing is it's really, really common, knee pain. So it's normally either 2 areas. Something going on with your ankles or something's going on with your hips. So that's the great thing about FMS is if you've got an injury in one area, it doesn't just go right, it's got to be that area. It looks for where's this dysfunction coming from. It's either going to be a different part of the body or a compensation from somewhere. So normally after I've scheduled someone to do a deep squat, I can only tell what score they're going to get just because it's such a functional movement in terms of it takes all of the main joints and it takes a good deal of dynamic stability at the same time. So once you've done that, the next one is called the hurdle step. So a hurdle step is basically mimics you with a high stepping motion. So yeah, tuck in by the way, and don't wait for me. So yeah, it challenges the body during a stepping motion. So yeah, you want to have proper stability in the hips, but also good mobility in them at the same time, and stepping up and going over. So really it is, can I control my body while moving? So for example, would it be stepping over a log or even walking up the stairs? If you sway your hips side to side or lean over, that's something we can look at and go, right, because you're swaying to one side, you might need to strengthen up the core somewhere. So that's the second exercise. Third one is the inline lunge, so I've referred to that a couple of times. Inline lunge, in my opinion, is definitely the hardest exercise because it involves total movement, but you're having to do a lot of brain and body work. So what I mean by that is, I'll give you a little demonstration. These exercises use a dowel rod. So very innocuous piece of kit. But with the inline lunge, you basically get a walkway and you take 1 foot behind the other, so straight away you're going to be wobbling a little bit. But from there, where the dowel rod comes into play is you have to take it hand over, arm underneath, and there's 3 points of contact. You try and keep the top of the head, upper back and lower back all touching the dowel rod. And so from there, you have to lunge down and come back up again. So there's an awful lot going on in just that exercise as it is. So in my opinion, that's probably one of the hardest ones you have to do.
And do you hold it?
So you try to hold it for 1 second at the bottom, and you have 3 repetitions for each leg. So we do obviously each side of the body, just to show, is there any symmetrical differences, asymmetry, or for example, are you using one leg stronger than the other? So, fourth exercise, which is the one I'm going to take you through today, is something called the active straight leg raise. So have any of you had any hamstring pain or tightness before? So this one, yeah, I'm exactly the same. So this one works on pretty much hamstring flexibility. So in the classes, we normally say lie on the ground. Can you take one leg up, hold it for a stretch? This is a dynamic moving version of that. So the great thing is that it doesn't actually just look at the hamstrings. If someone's quite tight in them, it also actually is the hips. What's the hips doing? So it's normally more than one actual option than it's just that muscle being tight. So once again, that relationship between flexibility and mobility. It's not just the length of the muscle, it's actually what's going on at the joint. Next test is shoulder mobility. So classically, this is going overhead. And the great thing about this is that we actually mark 2 points. So the end of the fingers and then the crease of the hand. And that gives us our marking. So if obviously someone's got bigger hands than the other, this gives us a universal form to say, right, across the board, this is going to be your marking. So what you do is take one hand overhead, one hand behind, and you just get as close as you can. So if someone finds it really hard to take or get their hands close together, normally the first question they go is, my shoulders must be tight. So yeah, it is the area we're looking at, but it's actually not just the shoulders. It's normally the back, so because it attaches to this bone here. But normally if you find it really hard to go overhead, or especially behind the back, it's actually how tight your chest is. Because that connects to the humerus, this bone here. And if you always find that you're coming slightly forward in the shoulders, so from the side, normally if you just say to someone, get a tennis ball or work it into the muscle or stretch it, you'll see a big improvement. And that's certainly for me. When I was younger, I used to do sort of the classic 16-year-old guy. Oh, I'll go to the gym and get a big chest to impress the crush I liked at college. So, however, I found out 2 years later that my shoulder was down here and I was scheduled in for surgery. But I went to a fantastic physio called Nigel at Hayward Heath. And he's fantastic. So if anyone needs help, he's the man to go to. But yeah, he gave me all these exercises, and that's really what got me interested in functional movement and also helping train out of injury. So I'm my own guinea pig when it comes to this. I've done it every single exercise, and yeah, it's definitely helped me. So then from there, we've got 2 trunk exercises. So we've all heard of a plank before, or done a plank. So this is a version of it. Basically, you take the hands straight away at eye level, keep everything in line with the ground, and you have 3 attempts just to push up and then back down. So this is the one which is a little bit loaded in the favour of males, just because on average, a male's upper body strength is going to be better than a female's. However, lower body, males and females are 1-to-1 in terms of strength ratio. Absolutely the same. And the last exercise is something called rotary stability. So, am I strong twisting side to side? So there's an exercise called a bird dog that we do sometimes in classes. You take one hand away from you and the opposite leg behind and away and bring it back in. That's a fairly advanced core exercise. This makes it a tiny bit harder. It has a little spin on it. So that is all the exercises, very 7. Normally it takes about half an hour to go through the whole test, maybe 45 minutes if you haven't done it before. But that's another big tick in the box of this exercise. You can't, if you do it once, go away and work at the biggest problem, come back and retest, see how you got on. I think I've retested myself, it must be about 20 times so far. And I've gone from a 11 up to an 18 in terms of the test. So for me, that's a huge difference. So what happens after the test? So what's the next step? So the next step is, we've taken you through the exercises, we found out what's your biggest weakness, or just for example, we found your legs to be really tight, your hamstrings are very, very weak. What's the next step? So that is corrective exercises. So, as I said before, we just don't want to stretch that area, we want to strengthen the opposing area to make sure it's not such a counterbalance negative effect. So, especially in our classes, we always have a progression and a regression for each of the exercises, some a little bit easier and a little bit harder. It's exactly the same for the corrective exercises. So we normally start off easiest plane. Once you've mastered it, as you were, go on to the next one. So just an example for the squat, we would use a squat with the straps. Gives you a good level of stability, a counterbalance with the straps. The next stage would be getting a little bit more stability through your body rather than attaining it from the strap. So you go body weight. So then once you train through adequate motion there, you just start to add a little bit more resistance just to strengthen up the appropriate muscle groups. So it all works through this function. So it's multi-staged, very, very easy in the deliverance. So does anyone have any questions at all about that?
It's nice. I suffer terribly with bad necks. Even just sitting here now, trying to up my neck and try and face you. Is that from having tight shoulders? Or?
So normally with a neck, yeah, it all links into another. First thing I would look at is how are you in terms of range overhead, but also how are you in terms of looking side to side. So normally, do you have a desk job? Or do you sit down quite a lot?
Yes.
Okay, so that normally is quite a big thing. So with the posture, you're in getting this position, or the head coming forwards. So I know you said to me on a couple of occasions as well, yeah, my neck does hurt, especially in terms of the core control. So that classic case of that is if you sort of jut the head before the actual main body. So you've got to remember the head is roughly, 15 pounds as well? So that's actually quite a lot of weight to be carrying the whole time. So you do have to have adequate strength in the neck, but also mobility. So I know for a fact that with myself, I get very tight this side because I use my left arm a lot when I play cricket. So one thing you can do for me just now, if you like to stand up, I'm going to use you as a case study now, I'm sorry. So yeah, just come to the front for me. And what side is on your neck? You feel it on your right more, or is it both?
It's both really.
Okay, so just to start off with, I want you to take a couple of deep breaths, just go nice posture. What I want you to do is take left arm out to the side and try and push it away from the body, and you're going to tilt your head slowly to the right. So I'm willing to bet you're going to find a nice deep stretch coming down the left side of your neck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So classic sign is if you feel sort of a stretch going straight away, is that, ooh, it's a little bit tight in there. And through FMS, normally the tightness is associated with the weakness. So one thing you can do straight away is, mobilise that area. Another one which is very good is take the same side. So all I'm going to do is take my right arm and put it over my left hip, keep myself nice and straight, and all I'm going to do from there is take my head and take it 45 degrees down over my right shoe. So that's stretching the main muscles of the neck. So have a go at that for me. So right arm over the top and onto left shoulder. And you're just going to pull gently to start off with, 45 degrees down. So that's stretching the main neck muscles as well. So those are the two stretches I like to use straight away.
That feels good.
And how often would you say that you should do the stretch?
To do that. So it determines on the severity of how tight you are. If you want to significantly change your flexibility, there's a very clever guy called Poliquin, and he says you want to stretch 6 hours a week to appreciably change your flexibility. The one thing I have...
That's a
Yeah, exactly.
over
That's,
the course of a week, it's not that much if you think there's 24 hours in a day.
Yeah,
There's 7 days in a week.
Sleeping, something like
I
that.
think the one thing...
And
Yeah,
to do, I mean, that's only, 30 seconds you'd do that for, so to equate that to, how many hours was it?
6 hours.
6
So
hours, that's,
the one,
that's
oh,
a
yeah.
lot going like this.
So that is the one thing I have. I mean, you're going to find it very hard in today's lifestyle, busy lifestyles, to find 6 hours to stop and stretch. So I would highly recommend getting to a routine. That was the biggest thing for me. So I went through this, I found out what my main problems were, but then stretch while I'm waiting for my coffee in the morning. Do I have a morning routine? I also stretch late at night. If quite a lot of you find you're not the deepest of sleepers or you wake up a lot, stretching before you sleep is fantastic. Yeah, it really
Yeah,
works.
it relaxes you as well because you tend to breathe better as well when you're stretching. So, and it relaxes the whole body.
Because I'm not afraid to say that I've been diagnosed with a sleep problem, which I've had since university. It's getting sorted out now, but stretching really helped me massively because it just helps center me, it helps me calm down, and I get into a really deep cycle of sleep.
Yeah. And there's that technique, do you remember when some of you came to the sleep talk by Kirsty, is that process of going through, you're working through your body, so you're tensing your muscles as tight as you can, holding them, and then you let it go. And so you start with your feet, to be careful with cramp, because that can happen. Start with your feet, but work up through the body, and then by the time you get to your head, you're actually really relaxed, and that can help you sleep as well.
Yeah, and that's a method that quite a lot of physiotherapists or osteopaths will use. For example, if you have a tight chest, they'll take the arm out to the side and they'll just get to your end range of movement, so where you feel a bit of stretch, and they'll go, right, I want you to contract as hard as you can, and when you relax, they'll take it just a little bit further, and contract and relax. So it's when they get to the bit where they can't go any further, that's actually when you're starting to really improve your mobility. So you're taking it to where your muscle feels okay, when you contract, and then go, contract, and then go again. So a lot of the exercise, go ahead.
Are we not naturally stronger one side than the other? I mean, you obviously are left-handed bowler, so you're left-handed, so are you stronger on your left side than your right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and aren't we all that way? And you were saying about these, it's beneficial to be equal without scoring.
Yes.
But would we not naturally be slightly stronger when scoring?
Yeah, I know, that's absolutely true. It's when you're looking for a huge deviation. So you've got to remember, you're never going to be completely symmetrical. No one's ever going to be that. Not even the 1% of people. Yeah, you're absolutely correct in saying you're going to have a minor discrepancy each side. But it's purely through behaviour. So, for example, do you always take your bag and pick it up with your right arm? Would you carry anything rather your right side than your left? Would
when
you?
you have a baby, you tend to put them on one hip, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
And if you put them on the other hip, it doesn't feel.
You put them on your side that you're not using, is what you do.
Yeah.
If you're right-handed, you'll put them on the left hand.
I mean, it even comes into years of, for example, when you stand, do you stand one foot in front of the other? Do you sink into one hip and the other? Because that makes a difference. Recently, I've really been trying to get myself to stand straight, so my hips are actually
In line.
straight, not to one side. Because I know that for a fact that that's contributed to me having a tight lower left back. Because I always sit like this, double teapot, and then So it's just it's the things that we take for sort of granted, like reaching up every day to get a cup with one arm rather than the other. You're using this arm more often, so it's going to be more mobile than that arm. Yeah. That's it. Any other questions at all?
Do you want a demo on me, the leg thingy?
Yeah, of course. No problem.
Are you all done with your eating? If I lie, I'm going to lie on the floor over there.
You're going to say lie on the table.
No, I'm not going to lie on the table. Thought about it.
Yeah, so if we can clear everything.
I'll take my shoes.
Yeah, okay, sure. But what's nice about all the exercises is that they don't make you think a lot, and the whole point of the exercise is actually to show your body at its rawest movement. So I wouldn't ask you to get in a specific position too much and tell you, right, move your arm now or move there, because I want to see you how you move naturally. Because if suddenly you're going, right, I must make sure that my arm's there, you're kind of cheating the movement itself. Cool. So yeah, this is called, yeah, so move round, everyone have a look. This is called active leg straight raise. So this is looking classically at hamstring flexibility, but also hips. So this, I'm going to get you just to lie on the ground for me, and just have your hands flat. So this is when we poke you with the dumbbell. Okay. So first of all, are you okay with finding your hip crease and just your...
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. So the reason why I'm looking to find these 2 points of contact is because in the course you learn to take these measurements at specific points. So for this point, I've actually measured halfway between her knee and her hip. So that gives me the best area to see what the hips are doing, but also how flexible her hamstring are. So what I want you to do is we're going to go 3 repetitions each side. I want you to press your right leg into the ground, and while doing it, I just want you to raise your left leg as far as you can.
You're just showing your practice.
Okay, come back down. And again. Yeah. And go one more. So yeah, Lisa's got really good flexible hamstrings. So come back down for me and just relax. So what I'm looking at is something called a malleolus. So everyone's got one. It's the little bony bit on the ankle.
Yeah.
I'm looking to see where's that in relation to this dowel rod. So in terms of the scoring, 0 would be if she couldn't lift it off the ground and went, ow, that hurts. That's straight away, we're not looking too good. A 1 would be hip. So obviously, it's a bit of a restriction. A 2 is hip. And a 3 is anything where that malleolus passes. So Lisa here's got a very, I'm not looking really. So one of the main things that everyone thinks is, oh, my hamstrings must be really flexible, that's good. It's not actually the main cause, it's the hips. Because the leg can only move as far as the hips allow it. So now we're just going to do the opposite to see how asymmetrical we are, so pressure on.
Yeah,
So now you're just going to do the opposite, press the left leg into the ground, and raise the right. So straight away we can see she's going to pretty much exactly the same level. Good, and then just one more time. So yeah, she's clearly getting that hip past the downward. So we can tell that she actually doesn't have a compensation on each side. So she's got good movement. So that tells us that hips are pretty mobile, but also because of that, that means that her flexibility in her hamstrings is also good. So that's the test, just for one of the exercises. So as you see, it's non-invasive, The instructions are quite clear. I'm purposely not making sure that I tell her what to do 100% because I want to see how she does it herself. So for example, if she came to here, and okay, right, we need to work on that, I'll show you one thing you can do, but I've already done it with a lady called Catherine.
Yeah. Who was going to come, but she...
Would you like a hand up? Or? Okay, so yeah, this is one of the corrective exercises, and it works on something called patterning. So this is something I've got my old man to do. He can't touch his toes. He gets to there.
Anyone here can't touch their toes?
All his life, he's never been able to touch his toes until 3 weeks ago. When he finally did it, and yeah, my rent has gone down significantly. So yeah, patterning is a very easy way just to say, remember that core I was talking about? The stronger the core is, the more we can control the limbs. This is, I kind of call it personal training voodoo. That's how I put across it. What we're going to do, we're going to cheat the body and the central nervous system into thinking we've got more range of movement than we have normally. But the more we do this exercise, so if you did this every day, even twice a day, I guarantee you would get big results in just a week.
Catherine couldn't touch her toes, and literally 5 minutes later, she could touch the floor.
Yeah, so this is my favourite thing to do as well. I'll just go around to random people on the street and be like, oh, there you go, yeah. So what we're going to do, it looks a bit dodgy, just bear with me. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to put this Pilates ball right in between my thighs, and it's just above my knees. So what this does, I'm going to squeeze the ball as hard as I can, and I'm going to put my toes on top. So what I'm going to do, take a deep breath. I'm going to squeeze the ball as hard as I can as I'm going down, and I'm going to keep legs straight, back straight. I'm just going to run my hands down in front of my legs and see how far I can get. So when I started off doing this, I got to here. I was like, wow, this is not good. So, for example, if you're going to get to here, all I would like you to do is just take a knee bend until you get to the toes. From there, exhale, slowly come back up. That's the key, slow for everything in this. And you want to squeeze this ball all the way down, all the way up.
What does that actually do then?
So this is where the magic happens. What I'm doing is, because I'm squeezing the ball as hard as I can, I'm activating something called my adductor muscles, so the inside of my thighs, for you and me. They have a direct relationship to our core. So if I activate this one here, it runs up into my obliques on the side here, and that gets them fired. So if my core's working, it allows me to go actually further down than what you normally can. So that's that patterning. The more you do it, the more it becomes the norm. Because essentially the body is just a dumb animal and just follows what we tell it to. So the more we do a specific thing, the more we're going to end up doing it. So for example, if we're sitting on the chair and we're always in this position, the body is going to automatically revert to that as the norm. So yeah, does anyone want to have a go?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
It's intriguing.
So yeah, what I want you to do is take the Pilates ball, put it between the thighs, and you're just going to put your toes up on the blocks. Excellent. So all I want you to do, take a deep breath, squeeze the ball as hard as you can, and keep squeezing it, and just reach down for me. Try and keep the back straight and the legs straight.
Do I breathe?
Yeah. Breathing's fairly important in this one, yeah. So yeah, just keep your breathing nice and controlled. When you feel like you can't go down any further, straight, introduce a little knee bend for me, and keep going down. Good. From there, slowly return to the top whilst keep squeezing the ball for me.
That's what you get to do.
Yeah.
The ball.
So it takes a little bit of time to get used to as well.
Who's squeezing while she's going down?
So
You're doing it.
all I want you to do is go 10 times for me.
Oh gosh.
Just 10.
Working off my own.
So yeah, just be nice and controlled. So for purposes, we'll go 5. So just go 5 for me, down and then back up.
Easy.
So yeah, each time you go down, try and go a little bit further than you could without that knee bend. So what we're doing is just improving the patterning. We're telling the brain, yep, watch out when you're going down. So we're just telling the brain, oh, I can go a little bit further each time. So that switches off. Basically, our brain's saying, oh, we don't like it if you go that far. So this is just relearning. So get 2 more times for me. But what's nice about the corrective exercise is you can do these for any movement.
Yeah.
Is there a set corrective exercise for each imbalance?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, good. That's brilliant.
So what I want you to do now is take the ball out. We're just going to wait for 10-15 seconds. And all I want you to do is take a deep breath and then try and touch your toes.
On the.
No, just on the side. So yeah, whenever you're, just go feet together. So whenever you're ready, have a go for me. Yeah, so you've got to. So for someone who has more of a tightness or weakness in the back, just do more repetitions. So for example, if someone's going to get to there, I'll get them to do 20 times with their feet up, and then you'd repeat it, but this time with the heels up, because it increases the length of how you got to press down. But yeah, it's crazy, because when the guy Nick showed me anyway, yeah, I can get you touching your toes in 5 minutes. I actually just laughed at him. I was like, there is no way on this earth you can get me to do that. And then 5 minutes later, I was eating my own words.
So what could we use at home then? A cushion?
So all you need is something where you can just apply a little bit of pressure. So Pilates ball is a great option. A sponge would do the trick. If you've got a foam roller, just something to press in there. And then all you need is a little step for about, 2 to 3 inches? Yeah. But that's the thing, you don't need a lot of kit, and you can do this every day. Yeah, and it really does work.
I'll try that one now.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, very good.
So just out to the side. So out to the side, and your head's just really opposite direction. So you're going to go. No problem.
So hopefully that's giving you thank you, Chris.
That's all right. My pleasure.
You could probably spend the rest of the afternoon playing with all the exercises, giving you a good idea of why I think this is a great service that we can bring into the studio. You've all got a little voucher on your handouts for a 15-minute assessment. So very welcome to come along. We're not going to do the assessments until September because of summer holidays and things like that. So just hang on to your vouchers, but I know you've come. And we'll set up some sessions. We'll probably do 3, maybe 4 people per session, and then we can go through and do some assessments. We might not be able to do all 7 exercises, but we'll pick the ones that are the ones that are going to give the most benefit.
Normally it's the hips, shoulders, ankles. They're normally the big 3.
Love your feedback on how you felt today was. And also, if there are any other subjects that you want to know more about, I mean, even if you would like us to do another one of these, but just perhaps go into a bit more detail on specifics, it's great to know what you want to hear about, because I can come up with loads of ideas about what to talk about, but if it's not of interest to you, then you're not going to come, and it needs to be of interest to you. So if you've got some ideas or you really want to know about anything else than fitness related, just drop that down in the feedback form as well, because that helps me to be able to put some things together. And now Chris is on board, he's happy to come and do some of these as well. And also planning to do, anybody understand when I say webinars? Probably webinars. So it's online, so you can dial in on your computer screen and you can see me and hear me talk about things. So rather than having to come here, we can do it online as well. So I can start to just provide more service really and more value to you. So thank you, Chris. Well done.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope you all.
Chris has got to go because he's got to go off to a cricket match now.
Yeah.